Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to show you all how to use the merge for the merge vertices, combine tool because we're going to make this entire thing one object, the MultiCut tool, and also the Bevel tool. So I'm going to get started and just show you, I'm going to turn wireframe on shaded here, and we're going to start to combine this so it's a closed object. Okay. Some modelers refer it to as a watertight object. So if you think of it as being like 3D printed, the entire thing would be watertight, meaning no water could get inside of it. So this entire thing is going to be one object by the time we're done with it. So I'm going to start on the easiest section, which is going to be right here. The sphere at the bottom and then the handle coming into it. So I'm going to just start by, if I press and hold Shift and I, that's the isolate mode. You'll notice it says isolate persp down here, isolate perspective mode. And if you deselect off everything and press Shift I, everything will come back. So that's a quick way to sort of just have one thing that you're focusing on in the scene while modeling. So I'm going to press Shift I with the sphere, and I'm going to actually delete 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 faces. And this is going to be where we merge into our model here. So if you notice, when we were doing this in the attribute editor, I made this 8 and this was 8 by 8. And the reason that is because we wanted to make sure that these combine nice and cleanly. So I'm going to delete these faces also here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the combine tool and merge vertices. Alright, so I'm going to select the handle and select the sphere. And now over here I can go to combine. It's the two little rectangles inside the circle. You could also do edit mesh, I believe it's in here. Combine, where are you? Or mesh combine. It's under mesh combine. There's one way to do it. And then also the just shortcut is right here. So combine. So now both of those are combined. What I would like to do next is merge these vertices. So to each corresponding one. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. So I'm going to show you the quickest, easiest way sort of first. If I select one, and then I shift select the other one, now I have two vertices selected. If I hold shift and right click, and I do merge vertices and merge to center, but you'll have to do that one at a time. So hold shift and right click, merge vertices to center. So you can do that all the way around. And I'll just show you this way for this part, and then I'll show you a different way on the next part. And you can just do this, and I'm just tapping G on the keyboard for last tool used, which is merge vertices to center. And now I know that this object is totally, at least the handle is merged into the sphere. So if I tap 3 on my keyboard, you'll notice it enters into a smooth mode, and as long as this is all sort of smooth going into it, you know you did it right. So what I'm going to do really quickly, I just undid one of the merge vertices, and you'll see, and I'll even undo another one, you'll see where it's really nice and smooth going in over here, and over here it's not, and you can even sort of see that crease where they're not connected. We don't want it to look like that. We want it to look like this. So that's how you can tell by tapping 3 on the keyboard. And then to go back, press 1. So 1 and 3. And 2 gives you a preview of both, sort of. It'll give you the mesh display smooth, as well as the wireframe of the previous, of the not smooth model, the original model. So that's 1 is regular, 2 is smooth preview and original mesh preview, and then 3 is just smooth. But I just toggle between 1 and 3. So now we actually know what all the first set of keys mean for the numbers anyway. 1 is the regular mesh preview or mesh display. This is mesh display and smooth display, just smooth display. Then we have wireframe, shaded display with textures, but we haven't really seen exactly what it does yet because we haven't added any textures yet, but we will soon. And then 7 is shaded display with textures and lighting. And that's all we need for now, but I'm going to go back into 5 and 1. So shaded display for 5 and just regular mesh display for 1. And make sure your object is selected. So if I'm not selected on my object, it won't work right. So anyway, now I need to figure out how I'm going to get these two, this mesh to merge into this mesh. And what I think will work is I'm going to use the MultiCut tool. So I'm going to select my MultiCut tool right here, and make sure you have an object selected when you do it. And you'll notice that you can just sort of cut into an object, but I'm not going to do that just yet. I want to show you the other way to access it. Edit Mesh MultiCut tool, or MultiCut. So really quickly, I'm going to show you a couple things this thing can do. It will snap to vertices, so that's always a nice feature. If you hold Shift, it will go to halfway, which is what we're going to be doing here. If you hold Shift while using this tool, you'll know that you're going halfway through the entire mesh, which is really nice. So it's a perfect center point from your, A vertex here and B vertex here. It just figures it out just for you. Pressing Escape cancels the entire thing, and holding Control will create an entire edge loop, and that'll only work if your model is broken down into just quads, because if it's a triangle it won't know how to do this. It'll just sort of branch off and not work right. And then even if you think they're all quads and it's not working for whatever reason, it probably means you have an extra vert in there. So what we're going to do with this one is we're going to use a combination of the MultiCut tool. And I'm going to hold Control and I'm going to hold Shift because I want it to go right in the center. And it will go like every little bit, but we want it to be basically in the center. And you can pretty much guide it out using the horizontal line here on the handle and the blade as well. So I needed that piece of topology in there so I could begin to bring in my handle and combine it into the hand guard, I guess you call it. So I'm going to show you another trick really quickly, and it's going to be the how to combine this in. So on an object with 8 subdivisions on the axes here, I know I'm going to need at least 4 faces when I extrude this in. So that's just sort of a little trick because of the amount of vertices we'll need. So with this selected, I'm going to tap the extrude button, and then I'm just going to tap R because I don't want to play around with all those settings. I think this is just easier to, especially when I'm sort of eyeballing it. And I'm just going to scale in uniformly from the center and just sort of get it as close as I can to these edges as possible. So I'm going to bring these ones in as well, and you'll notice I'm keeping each one of these as a quad by doing it this way. So now I've got this in here. Now I'm going to show you another way to do this. So just so you know, this is still a quad. 2, 3, 4, 1. So is this one, 2, 3, 4, and same on this side. But what's cool about it is now that I've sort of changed it, now it'll do, if I'm going to insert edge loops, it's going to go around just this section instead of the entire thing. So I've changed the topology of this section. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete these faces here. And the next thing I want to do is delete the faces on this handle. So I'm going to go into isolate mode really quickly, selecting my handle and pressing Shift I. And then I'm going to do my quick select and deselect. So I just selected the top faces, and I'm going to delete those also. And now from here, I'm going to show you how to snap vertices. So this is a little bit more complex, but also a much more accurate way to get your vertices going. So let's just say you had really specific specifications on your model, and merging to center wouldn't work exactly right because it wouldn't match the specs exactly, right? So in which case you'll know, and let's just say you knew that the handle was exact dimensions you needed on this particular part, and you wanted the handguard to come directly into it without messing anything up. So what you can do with that is take this vertice. I'm going to press W, and I'm going to tap and hold V. And you'll notice up here, this is the snap to vertex. You'll notice this becomes a circle, and I'm going to grab it from the circle, and I'm just going to go and drag it right to that point. And I'm going to do that for every single one. Hold V and just snap it directly to those verts. I mean, it is easy to accidentally pop up on a different vert, but just make sure you try to catch that as soon as possible. And I'm just holding V and grabbing it from the center point here and just dragging it in. You can also, just so you know, if I hold V, I can snap it to verts this way, so it'll be perfectly parallel or horizontal to this vert. And I can also snap it, if I can get it. This is the one thing that sometimes becomes difficult with it. I'll try it again. Yeah, it's snapping to the closer vert. But just to show you what it's doing, you can also snap it to, this vert. So it's parallel with this one and this one simultaneously. But I'm going to just do this. I'm going to snap it back over here. And then this one also. I'll try and do that one more time. You'll see if I'm just grabbing it from the handle, if I hold V, it's going to snap in direct height with the next vert. So this one is going to be way up here. So it's snapping into height with these. So just to show you. So I'm just going to go ahead and snap this here and snap that there. And I use snapping all the time. Okay, and now I'm going to combine both these objects. I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to run a combine. I'm going to go to vertex. Now I'm going to show you a different way to merge these. So I'm going to highlight all of them. Well, I'll start with one first. So I'm going to just drag this one off slightly so you can see how it works. I'm going to select both these vertices, but and then I'm going to hold Shift and right click and go to Merge Vertices, and then I'm going to go to Merge Vertices, but I'm going to hit this little square instead. That's going to pop up the little options box. And this thing called threshold is really important because if you have multiple vertices selected, and let's just say it's at 0.1, and I hit merge, it's going to merge all three of those. It's got to be a little bit larger. Merge vertices. Let's just say 1 and apply. And you'll notice they all merge into that 1 point. So I'm going to undo that. So this threshold is always important to know. But the thing that's cool about it is that now that you've seen it work, if I set my threshold really low, but I already know that these are directly upon each other, I could set that threshold to be extremely small. So I'm going to go and highlight all of these. And it's not going to matter that I have any of these vertices selected. I'll show you right now. So I know I've got all these highlighted. And the thing about, just a quick note before I continue with that, is that when you're selecting these, if you're trying to just select them one click at a time and going around, that's not going to work because you're only selecting one of them. So when they're overlapping like this, you need to have to actually do a click and drag or select one and then try to painstakingly wrap around and grab the other one or something. But you'll have to do a click and drag when they're overlapping each other like this. So if I tap 3 on the keyboard, just really quickly, you'll notice it has this really sharp edging in comparison to this soft one we did. So when I press the 3 button, that's all going to change here in a moment. I'm going to just run a click and drag, and just to show you exactly what I mean by changing that threshold, instead of having these all merge together at once. So if I hit apply, you notice how they all merge directly to one point, and we don't want to do that. I'm going to set this to 0.001 and see if that works, and I'm going to hit apply. And actually, I'm going to undo that really quickly. I'm going to tap 3 on my keyboard, and now I'm going to hit apply, and you'll see that these all merged, where, excuse me, these other ones did not because I set the threshold. So that's the coolest part about that tool. You can merge many vertices at once. Okay. So we're also going to do the same thing for the sword blade. And I'm going to do edit, delete all by type, and history. And what that did was, in case your inputs are getting to be too much, and let's just say you're noticing some lag or something, do this, edit, delete all by type, and history. It'll clear all that out, and it'll actually save memory on your file and your computer. So it'll save memory on like your RAM and everything, and it'll help you perform a little bit better on your computer end. Just an FYI, but it's just something I like to keep in practice. So anyway, going back to the sword, I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to highlight all of these faces, and I'm just going to hit the extrude button, and I'm going to merge these in. I'm going to tap 1. And this one will still work. Okay. So this one, I'm going to delete these faces, and then I'm going to select my blade and isolate it, and I'm going to delete the bottom faces. Alright. From here, I'm going to do that same thing I did earlier. Is I'm just going to snap these one at a time. Then I'm going to combine these objects. And just so you can see, I'm going to enter it in 3 mode. I'm going to go to my vertex. I'm going to highlight all the ones I need. In fact, I could probably highlight all of these, and it wouldn't matter because I'm going to use my merge vertices and make sure that threshold is small enough, and hit merge, and you'll see that it combines right in. And now I've combined this entire sword, and I think I'll do one thing also over here. While I'm at it, to make this a little bit cleaner, maybe I can make some subtle adjustments to this blade. I think that'll work. So I just made a subtle adjustment to the blade at the top to make the topology a little bit cleaner. So here's my sword, and now I'm still not done with it. So we've covered the combine tool, the merge tools, so merge to center and merge vertice. We've covered the MultiCut tool, and we also need to do the Bevel tool. So the last thing I need to show you is the Bevel tool, And in here, I'm going to hold right click and go to Edge. And I'm just going to double click this edge. If you notice, my camera's actually acting up. So to fix that, another reminder, it's been in multiple videos, just tap F, it'll snap you directly to where you're selecting. So now from here, with these selected, I'm going to hold shift and right click, and you see this little bevel edge, holding shift and right click. I'm going to go to Bevel Edge, and you'll notice I get this weird sort of curvature happening. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the segments to 2 first, and then I'm also going to change this fraction, that's basically the distance of it, to 0.2 at first, and maybe 0.1. And I want it to be fairly small. And you'll notice as long as your topology is correct, you'll get this to work perfectly fine just the first try. And what that does is you'll notice that I get this nice clean sharp edge right around here, and I'll show you without it. So when I do the bevel edge, I'm in smooth mode just to show you. I'm going to go to fraction, I'm going to change this to 0.1, and you'll notice it starts to get a little bit closer, and I'm going to change this to 2. And you'll notice that I get all of this this nice clean sharp edge, which is what I want for this particular blade. So I can also do the same thing around here, around this part. So I want it to be like close up here, and I'm going to hold shift and right click and I'm going to keep it in smooth mode just so you can see easier. Bevel edge, I'm going to change the fraction to 0.1 again, and the segments to 2, because I want to keep that as a nice crisp, clean, sharp edge. But at the same time, I also don't want to have a ton of topology added to this, so I'm going to keep it at small numbers. So 1's a little bit too small for what I'm trying to accomplish with this, but 2 is not. And here, just so you can see, I'm going to add one more beveled edge in here, and I'm going to go 0.1 and segments 2. Now, I've shown you the bevel edge 1, 2, 3 times. Let me show you another way that you can sort of bevel edge if you're struggling using the bevel tool, right? And I didn't go back far enough. If you're struggling using the bevel tool, you can just use the MultiCut tool. This does basically the same exact thing. I'm going to hold Control, and I'm just going to click once here and once here, and now I've basically done the same exact thing as I've done with the bevel tool. So with the bevel tool, just make sure you double click the edge loop and it selects all the way around, and then do bevel. But if for whatever reason you're struggling with it, try to use just the MultiCut tool and just hold Control, and it'll just wrap around for you nice and cleanly. And if it's not, it's because you have something wrong with your topology somewhere along the line. If you want to get super fancy with it, this is kind of cool, I guess. But I could always do something. Let's just say I wanted to keep this hard edge around it. If I go around and I select all of these edges, and I'm just showing you for future use on models, you'll notice in certain parts it won't allow me to double click all the way through, and that's just because of the way the topology is now. It just kind of does that because it doesn't have a solid edge flow when it gets to those corners. So I'm going to just select all the edges that I'm going to want to have beveled, and you don't have to do this part, but I want to show you. And I'll do this part too. And I'm just making sure that I've got all my edges selected that I want. Okay, I think that'll work. From here, you can also run a bevel. This is really a neat little trick because it does this cool thing where it like sort of cleans up your edges for you. So if I do 2 segments, you'll notice it actually recreates it so it is also still all quads. And then I'll make it even smaller, 0.1. And now when I enter smooth mode, you'll notice Oh, it looks like I had a couple edges selected that I didn't want. Yep. So I'm going to deselect these. So be careful with your edges, selecting your edges. So I'm going to do that one more time. So I did fraction point 1 and segments 2. And you'll notice that I've got all quads still running through here. And in this section, it looks like it didn't know exactly what to do. But that's okay. If you end up with something like this, I just ignore it. But if you want to fix it, this is how you fix it. I just selected all three of them and merged them to center. And you can do the same thing over here. It just didn't know what to do in that corner, which is what I was trying to explain. It's just kind of weird like that sometimes. But as long as I just get rid of it this way, to keep my quads, so I don't have that weird sort of topology, because this is now a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-sided shape, which we don't want. But as long as it's working for you, don't worry about it. But it is strongly recommended to try to fix those up. And there we have it. We have our clean topology mesh, and I'll do shading and turn wireframe unshaded off. And tapping 3 on my keyboard, I get this sort of clean little blade here. So that's the sword. So we've covered. We're going to continue working with this sword. But for now, just make sure you've got this object entirely closed. So basically everything, all the objects that we started with should be combined. Add subdivisions where needed, basically meaning around these sections I added one extra edge down the center using the MultiCut tool. Oop, I still got one over here. Okay, so add subdivisions where needed. Merge all the vertices. So the easiest way I've been showing you is by tapping 3 on your keyboard. You'll see where there needs to be merged if they haven't been merging properly. Bevel all the edges or use the MultiCut tool in 3 sections. So we're going to have it be one right here around the blade handle. We'll have it one here where the handle meets the hand guard, and one down here next to the sphere. And the last thing is just double check that your entire sword is completely closed by tapping 3 on the keyboard. You should be able to quickly tell if you have any issues with it. But this is what we're looking for. Go ahead and submit the Maya file, and definitely submit the Maya file on this one. I don't want to have any screenshots of your model up because I want to inspect it in case there's any issues I see with it. So be sure to submit the Maya file. But other than that, that's all I have for you in this video. Shoot me a message if you have any questions, and yeah, thanks for watching.